This time, we will introduce the Attica prison riot. We are men. We are not beasts, and we do not intend to be beaten or driven as such. What has happened here is but the sound before the fury of those who are oppressed. These words were spoken during the 1971 Attica prison rebellion by one of its leaders, Elliot Barkley. At the time, Attica prison was severely overcrowded. Its majority Black and Latino population faced constant physical and verbal abuse. All prison guards were white. Some were members of white supremacist hate groups. Guards threw away letters that weren't written in English and prohibited Muslim religious services. They punished white prisoners for fraternizing with non-white men. Prisoners were allowed one shower a week and one roll of toilet paper a month. Among those imprisoned at Attica were Elliot Barkley, Frank Smith, and Herbert X. Blyden. "I'm dying here little by little every day," Barkley wrote his mother. She contacted authorities, but nothing changed. He began writing a book about life at Attica. Meanwhile, Smith worked a position called the warden's laundry boy for 30 cents a day. His grandmother had been enslaved. Because Smith and others were treated as less than human at the will of their keepers, they viewed prison as an extension of slavery. And Blyden had participated in prison strikes and rebellions. He and others saw the violence of prison as symptomatic of a societal problem where individuals are denied justice based on their class and race. They felt people shouldn't be stripped of their rights to health and dignity upon being sentenced. Instead, resources should go towards meeting people's basic needs to prevent crime in the first place. In the summer of 1971, Blyden co-founded the Attica Liberation Faction. The group compiled a manifesto and petitioned Corrections Commissioner Russell Oswald and Governor Nelson Rockefeller for better treatment. Though largely ignored, they continued organizing. After activist George Jackson was killed at a California prison, 700 men at Attica participated in a silent fast. Just weeks later, on September 9, a spontaneous uprising began. A group of prisoners overpowered guards, sparking the Attica Rebellion. Prisoners broke windows, started fires, and captured supplies. They beat many guards. One of them, William Quinn, would die from his injuries. Soon, over 1,200 prisoners had assembled in the yard with 42 hostages, preparing to demand change. They established a medical bay, delegated men to prepare and ration food, protected and sheltered guards, and elected a negotiating committee. They appointed Blyden chief negotiator, Smith as security chief, and Barkley as a speaker. Later that day, Barkley presented their demands to the press. When his mother saw him on TV, she was terrified. He was just days from being released. But she believed authorities would want retribution. Over the next 4 days, prisoners held negotiations with officials. They called for a minimum wage, rehabilitation programs, better education, and more. They promised all remaining hostages would be safe if they were given amnesty for crimes committed during the uprising. Meanwhile, Governor Rockefeller began crisis talks with President Nixon. The president told his chief of staff that the rebellion should be quelled to set an example for other black activists. Commissioner Oswald announced he'd meet a number of the demands, but refused to guarantee amnesty. Prisoners refused to surrender. As warnings of an imminent siege mounted, they threatened to kill 8 hostages if attacked. Nevertheless, Rockefeller ordered troops to retake the prison. Helicopters tear-gassed the yard. Troopers shot over 2,000 rounds of ammunition, killing 29 prisoners and 10 guards, and wounding many others. Witnesses say troopers found Barkley and shot him in the back. Officers stripped surviving men naked, tortured them, and deprived them of medical attention. Blyden was starved for days. Smith was sexually violated, burned with cigarettes, dragged into isolation, and beaten. Directly after the attack, Governor Rockefeller thought prisoners were responsible for the deaths of the 10 guards. He called it a beautiful operation. President Nixon congratulated Rockefeller and told his chief of staff that the way to stop radicals was to kill a few. But autopsies soon confirmed that prisoners hadn't killed any guards during the attack, as threatened. Government forces had. Nixon told Rockefeller to stand his ground. Those who survived the massacre continued fighting for revolutionary change. Long after being released, Smith and Blyden campaigned for social justice and prison abolition. The demands men made at Attica in 1971 remain at the core of ongoing protests, within and beyond prison walls.